honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. That's probably my favorite mechanic part of this game. I think that's what makes the Fallout RPG so much fun.
Podcast. Podcasts never change.
Except for the What is Tabletop podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to What We Just Said. My name is Frank. I have been doing this for far too long. And Charles?
Hi, I'm Charles, and I've been just doing this about 2 years now.
Today, what are we talking about, Charles?
Today, we're going to be talking about the tabletop game Fallout.
Oh, snap. Is that why we have all this Fallout stuff?
I sure hope so. That'd be very confusing if we didn't.
It would be.
If we did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, we are going to talk about the Fallout Tabletop RPG made by Modiphius. I know there's a few other ones, including one that was made by a fellow YouTuber, Expedia Level 3, which apparently he was like, yep, I saw all these other ones and didn't like them, and then made his own, which, cool for him.
Awesome.
I don't have that time. So instead, we're going to talk about the one that was pre-made by Modiphius. Fun fact, Charles actually ran this one.
Yeah, for a short time, we had to take a little hiatus. I'm not sure if we'll get back to it or not. But yeah, this was my first real venture into GMing.
And as a player, I cursed his table by being a player and thus making it to where it would never finish. So I blame that for me. That's my fault. I have the, what would be a perk name for that? The unlucky perk, I guess? I don't know. My luck stat is very
low. Your
low.
luck stat was really good. So it would be the Irish goodbye or something.
It's not a bad name for like a perk for Fallout. Fallout.
Yeah.
Well, before we talk about that, we ask that you subscribe. Thank you to all of those who just subscribed. We have doubled our subscriber count.
Woo!
We're really appreciative. If we get to 1,000 subs, we will do a Q&A. You can ask us anything, except that. But you can talk about whatever you want, and yeah, it'll be fun. So we hope that you will enjoy it. And let's get into today's episode, Charles.
All right. So, what is the tabletop for Fallout? How does that? What's it about?
Yeah. So more than likely, if you're wanting to pick this up, it's because you played one of the games. Maybe you've watched the new TV show. Hot take. It was good.
It was good. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah. Our hottest takes here only at the What is Tabletop podcast. But if you enjoy the aesthetic of a post-apocalyptic future that's still stuck in 1955, this is the game for you, where everything is, irradiated nuclear nightmare, but like also campy fun.
Very much so. Yeah. There's a lot of comedy for such a dark material.
Also, we are unintentionally wearing Fallout colors. You are blue and I am yellow. Look at that. We definitely planned. That was pre-planned, everyone.
Vault dwellers, baby.
Well, that's part of the fun too, right? So again, if you like the show, if you like the game, whatever you're wanting to play, you could probably play it.
Oh, for sure.
The game itself takes a lot from Fallout 4 specifically, and that's really obvious in certain perks that are available. The fact that you can customize weapons to an insane degree.
Yes.
Like, if you like to crunch those weapons, like, you like to get every +1 you can, holy cow. There are so many +1s to get in this system. And I think that's really cool that this system has the flexibility to be like, oh, I just want to be this niche thing, or I want to min-max to my heart's desire. And I think they did a good job at Modiphius.
Yeah, I think so too. They did a really good job of really collecting that lore that you get in the video games. That they did a very good job of making this tabletop role playing game. It plays again. If you were to take the video game and make it a tabletop game, this is exactly what it would be. So
if we're going to talk about the lore for a quick second, again, it's Fallout 4.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it takes place in the Commonwealth. Like the pages of the book, take place in the Commonwealth. So lots of things of like synths or robotics people, even though you can't play one.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess you could.
You could. Again, we can talk about that later, but
that'd be more of a homebrew thing. But yeah, it's actually surprisingly similar to the game. Instead of having a normal 6 stat attributions, right, like in D&D or a lot of other things, it just takes the special stat, which is a thing from Fallout, and that's your skills, your abilities. Yep. And then your skills are also things from the video games. I think, and people will quote me if I'm wrong, I think the skill list in this game is the skill list in Fallout 4. And I know it's changed from game to game. I know like Fallout 3 and New Vegas are very different skill lists. Like one of them combines guns together. One keeps big guns and small guns separate. So those things are a little tweaky. You're always welcome to change that. But ultimately, it keeps a lot of the similar things. So if you've played the video game, if you made a character in the video game, making a character in this RPG is very similar.
It's again, it's, if, like we've said before, if you enjoy the video game, especially Fallout 4 specifically, you will enjoy this tabletop. And really, and so Frank, how would you say this game plays?
It's a very interesting game. So it's from Modiphius, and Modiphius has a specific generic role-playing system. Watch that video if you haven't, where they call it their Modiphius 2d20 system. The main point of that system is you'll take 2 or more d20s, but always at least 2, and you're going to roll under a number. So, other games might have you roll above a number. This one has you roll under. That number is determined by your stats, by your ability plus your skill. So, like, if I'm rolling to defuse a bomb, I might add my intelligence plus my explosives. And so what that does is, when you add those two together, that gives you the number that you want to roll under to get a success. And so from there, you've set the DC in a sense. You've set how difficult it's going to be. However, the GM determines how many successes you need in order to actually be successful.
Correct.
So, for example, in this bomb diffusing situation, I have an explosives of 3 and an intelligence of 7. That means I have to roll a 10 or lower in order to get a success. And then Charles might tell me I have to roll 2 successes, which is very difficult then. That means, okay, I have to get a success on both of my dice. He might say 1 success, in which case, okay, I only have to roll under 10 with one of my dice. And there's some additional things. For example, if you roll a 1, that counts as 2 successes. Mm-hmm. If you have a tagged skill, then whatever number you have in that tag skill, if you're rolling for that skill, that number or lower is considered a crit. So for example, again, going back to our bomb example, if I have a tag skill explosives of 3, it means if I roll a 3 or lower on any die, that's 2 successes instead of 1. So let's say I have my explosive skill tagged. I'm rolling a 10 or lower, but I'm rolling 2 dice. Now my chances of critting went from 5% to 15. Mm-hmm. And that's actually nice. That's pretty good. Yeah. And they can stack. You can roll more successes than needed. So let's say somehow I'm rolling 3 d20s, which we'll talk about in a minute, and I get like 3 successes instead of 2. I can bank one of those successes into a shared pool amongst the players, and now in a future roll, someone can take one of those banked successes basically and add a die to their roll. And so now instead of rolling 2 d12s, we're rolling 3 d12, or instead of rolling 2 d20s, we're rolling 3 d20s. And then thus that could cause more successes, which you put back into the pool, and you can continue this process. And honestly, I'm not going to lie to you, that's probably my favorite mechanic part of this game. I think that's what makes the Fallout RPG so much fun.
Absolutely. And the cool thing about it is that we have the GM actually has a pool of those same points that they get to start off with in the game. I think it's based on the number of players. Correct. So like if it's the GM and there's 4 players, I start off with 4 of those additional points that I can use to make more challenging rolls, things like that. Yeah,
you can add dice to your NPC rolls. Mm-hmm. There's also an interesting kind of give and take, like a little fun where if I don't have any banked points, because as players you start with 0, you can give a point to the GM to roll with 1 additional die. And I think that's also a really fun push your luck mechanic. We see that in a few other systems. I think Star Wars has it a little bit. I'm always a fan of that. A lot of players I think can be a little scared when it comes to that. So that's something to keep in mind about your play group.
And the good thing is too, is not unlimited too. It's there is a specific amount you can go up to. I can't remember
it's 6 for players. I think it's unlimited for the
GM. Yeah, it's unlimited for the GM. But I think for the no matter how many players you have, I think the most they can save up is up to 6.
Yeah, and you can only ever roll 5 d20s at once as well.
Correct.
Which I think is fair, because then if you're rolling an insane amount, it's insane. And also I think the points go up incrementally. Yeah. It's not 1 point per extra die used. It's actually 1 point for the first additional die, then 3 points for the second additional die, or 3 points for 2 additional die, and then 5 points for 3 additional dice, something like that. And I think that's, again, a really nice thing where it's it's incentivizing you as a group to roll more successes and bank them for the team, but then it's also incentivizing you not to steal all of them because they cost incrementally more. But at the same time, if the party's hey, we really need to succeed on that thing, use all of it. It's fine. We'll be down to 1 or we'll be down to 0. but we need to be successful on that, which I think is a fun thing if you have that kind of a play group that's like willing to be like, hey guys, I don't want to take all of these points.
Yeah.
Are you all fine with it? And talking that way.
Yeah, which is, again, really nice to have those. And those shared points, again, you do want to be careful with that kind of stuff too, because thankfully when we played, we didn't have any players who were like hogging all the points. Mm-hmm. Again, everything's done kind of again, it really does kind of promote that whole like be wise with how you spend your points. And, yeah.
It was funny. I remember in the beginning, a lot of our players were a little shy to use it.
Yeah.
And so I was using it a lot more. Mm-hmm. And then I found out that you kind of want to roll more dice on the things you're really good at because you're more likely to get successes and thus bank more. So at least when you're low on numbers. So like if I was doing an explosives check and I was tagged in it, like I could normally probably get 2 successes with 2 dice. Mm. But because we are down to 1 point in our shared pool, I'm like, I'm actually going to use that with the hopes that it will give me 2 additional points. And now we've added 2 points. Yeah. It's kind of like a stock exchange in some ways, right? Where you're like hoping to like double your points. But it's kind of a risky reward, which is like you did waste it, but you got more points for your players, which I think is an interesting mechanic.
Yeah. Well, and as a player, Frank, how easy was it or how easy did it feel to get those points?
Yeah, we got them so easily. Like we got to 6 quickly to the point where I was like, I'm going to spend some of these. Cause like the thing is, if you try to hoard them, they only last for the session. And again, I think that's a good design where it's the idea that, yeah, we're going to give you a mechanic that can help you out when you choose to. But like, if you hoard onto it, you're never going to be able to use it come next session.
Yeah, so we talked about stats a little bit too. The special stats that use the same thing from the video games too, which is like strength, perception,
endurance, charisma, intelligence,
agility, and luck. Which luck is a really cool concept in here. Frank, why don't you talk a little bit about luck?
Yeah, and then we can talk about combat because everyone's going to want to know that.
Yep.
I love luck in any RPG. Call of Cthulhu is a really fun version of luck. This system is amazing. I made basically a luck build and it was great. So how luck works is, so every stat kind of has corresponding skills. Usually, well, you can kind of like mix and match abilities and skills, which I really enjoy. So like you could roll with strength plus big guns, but you could like make an argument where it's like, I'm actually going to roll with agility plus big guns in this situation because I'm using this gun to catapult something. Whatever your mind comes to with creativity. Yeah. What luck does is it allows you to spend a point of luck. So you have luck points equal to the amount that is your luck. So if I have 7 luck, I have 7 luck points. I can then choose to re-roll if needed, which is fun, by spending a luck point. Or, in my personal favorite, spend a luck point to roll with your luck modifier instead of another one. So if I'm really bad at strength, but I'm really lucky, I can spend a luck point, and now instead of a 3 strength, it's a 7 luck roll plus whatever the skill is. And oh my gosh, I love it so much. It's a little broken in my opinion because you just have to dump everything into luck, and then you're like, oh, even the things I suck at, I'll just use a luck point for that. Oh, I'll use a luck point for that. And then there's perks that also let you use luck points. But like I found I just wanted to use luck to like roll on the things I was bad at.
My favorite thing about his character was that the concept when he brought it to me, he was like, I want to have a very lucky character. They think they're smart, but the reality of it is they're just very lucky. They just happen to get away with a lot of stuff because luck is it's their primary skill. Yeah. And when he told me that, I was like, absolutely. I think that sounds like that sounds very Fallout. Yeah. I was like, absolutely. Let's. And I
wanted this character to either be like he has a really big come to Jesus moment, where it's like, oh, I'm not as smart as I thought I was, or he like gets too full of himself and like falls to his own, like is hoisted by his own petard, kind of a thing. And then we'll quickly go over combat. Combat's an interesting thing. So again, it's much like any other roll. You're gonna take your tags, or you're gonna take your skill, then you're gonna add your ability that is pertinent to the situation, and you're gonna roll, trying to get a certain amount of successes. Successes are determined by most of your abilities. Most people will have 1 defense, and so you only need 1 success to hit them. Depending on distance, it might be more successes. Depending on armor and stuff like that, it also might be more. But you're trying to roll at least 1. And then when you successfully hit, you roll a certain amount of D6s. And the D6s can either be 1 1 hit, 2 hits, no hits, or the special vault symbol, which just means that if your gun had a special ability, that ability activates, as well as dealing 1 damage. So it's interesting. You can hit and deal 0 damage if you're just incredibly unlucky.
It's like almost like the concept is like, okay, you shot, you didn't do any damage because like it ricocheted off their armor or something, or
you could go full Pulp Fiction with it, where it's like, how did you miss? All right, we'll just kill you instead. And then one additional thing, you can usually, if you call your shot, that's an additional difficulty, or you roll the like body hit die. So like if you're successful, you can roll it, and then it's like, oh cool, I hit the torso. That is important because if you deal 5 or more damage, or it's a critical hit, they get an additional effect on them. So like if it's a torso, they get like bleeding damage. If it's an arm, they drop something, stuff like that. And I think that's, again, a fun thing. The downside is having to remember all that.
All of that, yeah. Thankfully, we have the book available. I have it on a PDF format.
I took pictures.
Yeah. There were a lot of things to do with this. And again, the combat's a lot of fun, too, because the hit points are actually pretty low. Like, everything's low. There's, and the higher the hit points, it doesn't matter. I had these guys fighting things with 30, 40 hit points, which is a lot in the game. And then I had them fighting, several small things with just a couple of hit points. Sometimes it took them longer to fight things that were more of, like you're being more swarmed, versus the guy who had a bunch of hit points and, he went down pretty quickly, I felt. Yeah,
it is interesting how, and that's true of a lot of RPG systems, is that the one boss is always not going to be as good as the 5 player characters because of the action economy.
Yeah. And
so that is a point to know if you're going to make an encounter in this game. If you're going to have a boss, probably have some henchmen
for sure
alongside them. It's just going to make the combat feel a little bit more interesting. Because that was the thing. Yeah. When you had henchmen, then it was a tough battle. Like, it actually was. I think there was a few times where everybody was, like, going down.
There was a couple.
And the only reason I wasn't is because, like, I was building a sniper build until I realized luck was insane. But that's its own thing. But I was building, like, a sniper energy build.
And that's right. It was energy build.
I was just able to be, like, 2 zones away because I modified my gun. So now it's like, it takes you 2 rounds to get to me, but I'm going to shoot you by the time it gets to me. And, like, I can pump additional damage into it. And I really enjoyed the laser guns in this. As a fan of the laser guns in Fallout 3, I was a fan of them in this game.
Yeah, the laser weapons are definitely the way to go if you're looking to do damage and do a lot of it. And I was pretty generous too when it came to finding ammunition at times.
What's interesting is I think the game also gives you scavenging rules.
It does.
And so like you can just make a scavenging check and then you roll on a random table. Yeah. And so I think that's nice, actually. And I don't think it's a bad thing to give us too much ammo, because especially since we're working with a lot of guns.
They can miss, too.
Yeah, and you can miss with, like, you still burn the ammo even if you miss. So, like, giving us a lot of ammunition isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
You don't want us to, every session, run out of ammo. Because, my character's a sniper. If I run out of ammo, I am useless. Like, until I found grenades. But
man, grenades, like explosives.
Explosives.
I mean, like just like the video game, like they do some damage.
And again, what's interesting about explosives is like because you're playing with multiple players.
Yeah.
You could really do some damage to your own.
I think that happened.
Yeah, I definitely blew up some of our friends. It's fine.
Yeah.
They didn't die that session.
Yes, they were low, but they did not die.
Yeah.
So.
So combat's a fun game. I think what's nice is it can be as crunchy or as not crunchy as you want it to be.
Yeah.
Because like I built a little more crunchy, like, and I looked into the gun mods and stuff like that.
Well, you're a GM, right. I expect you to build crunchy.
Right. And that was interesting too. So like if you're more of a crunchy player, make a like repair, like your main stat, repair small guns, whatever like skills you want to do. And then I recommend repairing your own team's guns. And modifying them, because that's what I was starting to do.
Yep.
I was starting to say, hey, who wants a better gun? Okay. Instead of us trying to find a new gun, let's just make the gun we currently have better. And so then, again, they give very good rules for scavenging. So you could find a weapon that happens to have the part you need, or they'll say you just need 3 small objects and 3 metal. Just like in the video game. And boom, there you go. Now you can make a longer barrel for your rifle.
Now, what about healing in the game?
Yeah, we talked about that. Stimpaks are your friend.
Stimpaks are your friends, but man, it's not like the other famous tabletop role playing
The one
game.
we will not name. Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. So like you don't no long okay, you rest along, that's fine. You don't really necessarily get your hit points back. I think I homebrewed it to where I let you guys do that because we were playing so infrequently that it would just I didn't want us to have to keep track of that. I'm like, we'll just and the same thing with your lucks. I let your luck renew more frequently than I should have, I think. But again, it was all for fun.
Right. That is something to keep in mind. Is like it's not another system where like you just rest and everything comes back. You do have to like recognize, okay, this comes back, this does not come back. My luck refills when I think it's when you sleep, not every session. And so that's something to keep in mind.
Correct.
Stuff like that is stuff you want to make sure you read up on. We're not going to go into all the minutia because
it's too much.
It's too much, and also we don't want to just give the book away for free.
Yeah, if you like what we have to say here today, you for sure should pick it up. Again, if you, as we said earlier, if you like Fallout 4 especially, you should pick this game up.
That being said, I think they just ran out of printings of the book because of the TV show, but they did say they were going to do new reprints of everything. We do recommend, if you're going to buy it, also get it if you can. Probably get one pair of the dice. You do not need to. They give you charts where if you just have a D20 and D6s, you'll be fine.
Yep.
You just have to refer to the chart. But it is a lot easier to just look down and be like, okay, I hit the torso and I do this much damage and I get my special effect, rather than having to consult a chart and be like, what did I get again?
It makes it a lot easier with their dice. The body part dice and the hit dice, those are the ones you want to have offhand. Again, you don't need a lot of them because again, we shared. Frank had some. I think you had 2 sets.
Yeah.
And I bought a set, so we'd have enough to share with everyone. So this way, it made life a lot easier when we play the game.
Yeah, and really all you need after that is D20s, and like you should probably have D20s. I'd be surprised if people don't. You need no more than 5 per player, so no more than 5 total.
Yeah, because you can share. That's because everyone's kind of again just like any other tabletop, you're acting individually. So
let's talk about character stuff. So what I really like about this game is the fact that it tells you in the mechanics basically you need to specialize. This isn't a game where it's like, just do whatever you want and then hopefully it works out. It really wants you to specialize, and the mechanics do guide you to that. I do think a lot of newer players would still find difficulty in realizing that's what the mechanics want you to do. But once you understand the tag system, it really comes clear that this is about specializing. It's about figuring out what your character's like really going to be good at and then just banking on that. It's not a class-based system. It's definitely more like a skill tree system.
Yes.
And again, this is where Fallout 4, it becomes very obvious that this is taken from Fallout 4. So every time you level up, and I think there's only I think you actually can level up past level 20.
You can.
It tells you level 20, but I think you can go past level 20.
They give you things like if you decide to go beyond level 20, what you need to do in order to go beyond that.
Right. Every time you level up, you get a new perk. Or no, every time you level up, you get a new perk. And the perks are all tied to the special stats. So if you want a certain perk, it requires you to have a certain perception. If you want another perk, it might require you to have a previous perk first. There's some perks that you can take multiple times, but they won't let you take back to back. You might have to wait 4+ levels before you can take that perk again. And so I recommend, if you're wanting to know how to build a character, look at your perks first, because your perks are going to tell you how to build your character. Yeah. So if there is a perk that you're just going through and you're like, man, I really want this perk. So let me see if I can find a good example. So let's say I really want to build guns like we talked about earlier, because building guns is a really fun system. You need the gun nut perk in order to build certain guns, right? If I want to add a certain modification, regardless of what kind of gun it is, it still might require a gun nut perk. I think even my laser weapons, even though they were energy weapons, occasionally needed the gun nut perk as well. So it tells you how many ranks you can get. It tells you the requirements. I need 6 intelligence, and it has to be every 2 levels. So that means when I take it, I get 1 rank, and I can't take the second rank for another 2 levels. So knowing that in advance means if I'm going to be the guy who's making all the guns, who's modifying all the guns, I need to have at least 6 intelligence, and I need to be ready to take 4 ranks in gun nut. So that's going to help build off of that, right? Yeah. If I understand that that's what I want to do. And so then from there, I might put it into small arms, or small guns, like a tag skill there, put tag skill in repair, and maybe a tag skill in heavy weapons if I want, and go from there. And so it's really about figuring out what kind of a player you want to be and going from there. There's a few different builds you can do. Obviously, the repair one, you can do a all luck build, which is actually fascinating.
Yeah.
You can make it to where like you crit more often and deal more damage that way. Like you can be an insane amount of damage with a luck build, which is really fun. You can go explosives, which I think you can end up getting a perk that doesn't hurt your friends, which is nice. And I would have 100% gotten that a little bit later because your boy liked grenades. Grenades are phenomenal in this game. There's a few other things. You don't need someone to be like a healer, but someone should probably be decent in medicine. And that's like a really important point there. Yeah. And here's the thing, you don't need to have a tag skill. You only get 3, maybe 4 if you take the extra perk, but you can put ranks in other things, in other skills, regardless of if they're tagged or not. Just when they're tagged, it means you're more likely to do well on those abilities.
And I think there's a limit on how much you can put in your tag skills, right?
There's a limit on how much you can put in your skills, period. It only goes up to 6. And again, this is where like they have done their math.
Oh, for sure.
They have done their math because your special stat cannot go more than 9. In character creation, you can't give it a plus like above a 7 or an 8.
Yeah.
So that means you have to, in order to get to a 9, which is the max, you have to take a perk that increases it to 9. Mm-hmm. Then you have to put 6 points into a skill, which you get a lot of points in the beginning for your skills, but then every level it's 1 point. Like that you can distribute amongst your skills, period. Mm-hmm. And so that means if you do the math correctly, you can never get higher than a 15 on a success.
Yep.
Like that is your max. That means what, 25% of the time you still have a chance to not succeed. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fair. If you're really good at something, a 25% unsuccessful rate is still pretty dang good.
Yeah. And if you roll a 20 too, we didn't mention this because we said 1 was a critical success. It counted 2 successes, and it's 2 successes. 20 is a
20 is a complication.
20 is a complication. So
that's something that's interesting too. Yeah. Is the 20 doesn't mean you fail. Correct. It means there's a cost. There's something that happens.
My mistake, yes.
Right, and I think like we've talked about that, right? We were fighting a bunch of mole rats.
Yeah.
And like even if I succeed, even if I get my 3 successes, if one of those dice is on 20, there's a complication. So it's like, yes, you do the thing, but in this situation where you're fighting mole rats, 2 more now appear. And I remember you doing that, which I think was fun, and especially in a swarm fight, a very good mechanic where it was like, crap. Well, I don't want that.
And the book also kind of tells you, like, it gives you, like, you know, I could have used the book more often when it came to that kind of stuff. But we were just trying to have fun with it, I think, just really, you know, playing with the mechanics and playing with the story, I think. But it's so if you're not comfortable coming up with your own, like, complications, it does give you a list of complications. I think there's a table.
Yeah. It also gives you a decent amount of, like NPCs of monsters to fight, which is really fun.
I think there's even campaigns in there, like missions and stuff you can put into your campaign.
I'm always a fan of when a tabletop book will not only say here's how you play the game, they're also like, by the way, in case you can't come up with something or you would like an example of it, here's an example of it.
Yeah.
I think for any future game designers out there, give at least some sort of advice on that of like, here's the plot structure, here's like the vibe we're going for when you make this game, because you're gonna have a lot of people who are like, I don't know how to make this work, I've just played the video game, or this is the first time I'm doing this, or they come from another system and they're not entirely sure exactly how this one works.
Having those elements in the book help out a lot too. Again, I consider myself fairly creative, so I didn't use it as often as I could have. But again, if I ever felt stuck, I knew the book was there to help me out if I needed it. So
yeah, and that's a good point. So let's go to how you felt running the game, Charles. Especially since you are like, this would have been your first time. Like you've ran like a one shot, but this was like your first campaign.
This was my first real campaign, that I started. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Again, the system not hard to learn. Again, there is a lot of stuff to know. And, like having, like I said, I had my PDF that I was using that I downloaded from Modiphius. It was, again, I enjoyed it. I also liked the characters. Again, for me, it was like playing Fallout but in my own little creation. Because I even I changed the location to where we live at to our state. So it was to be more recognizable to the characters. So things like, oh yeah, I can recognize that, So
yeah, Disney's over there.
Yeah, so all these different things, doing that. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed coming up with random NPCs because again, there's as a player, I like to put a level of levity in my play style because I think it's fun to have fun. And as a GM, I also feel like it's fun to have quirky players, and Fallout's a great system to have. It sets you up perfectly for quirky characters.
Yeah, he had a character named Twinifer who was just two ghouls fused together, and they were named Twinifer. Twinifer. And unfortunately, that does not sound like that does fit in the Fallout.
For sure.
That is a character who would definitely exist in Fallout for sure.
And then I had a super smart super mutant named Sagan.
Yeah,
named after
which
Carl
actually
Sagan.
fits because in Fallout 4 you have Strong, who read Macbeth and wants to look for the milk of human kindness.
Yeah.
So I could see a super mutant being like, "This man was well respected for his intellect. I will name myself Sagan."
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it was fun coming up with the characters and coming up with different situations of what they need to do. That's the great thing I think about Fallout is that it puts things in the real world too. It's not just you're playing this fantasy land. You are genuinely playing a game that's okay, if you live in Germany, you could set up a post-apocalyptic Germany. Coming up with all the different little things that make your game unique was I think the most fun I had with this game.
And that's the thing too is if you really enjoy the lore, but you don't want to do something that will then get retconned or whatever, you can do it in a place that hasn't been done by the games yet. So you can go to Texas, or you could go to Florida, or you could go to the Bahamas, Hawaii, and all these different places that haven't been explored by the game and probably won't be explored by the game because that's
just too many. Way too many places.
And that's the fun. You can still be in the same world, but it's the new California public wouldn't be in Florida. So what's there instead?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think the people who are going to want to play this game are obviously Fallout fans, and I do not think they'll be disappointed. The hard part might be getting used to some of the rules. Then, as we've said, the really nice thing about these rules is they're very, it's as wide as a puddle, but as deep as a pool. Yeah. So it's really easy to understand and get into at first, and then if you want to get to the crunch, it's there if you want to. And if you don't, you just ignore it. You can just ignore them because they're not going to come up too often if you're not going to look for them. So I think for a lot of people, this is a good first time RPG to get into. I don't think it's a bad one at all.
Again, especially even being a first time GM, I think this is a good one to get into. Because again, especially if you're into Fallout, again, I had played Fallout 3, New Vegas, 4. I even played a little bit of 76. I was into Fallout at this point when I found out about this, which is funny because I didn't know Frank had a copy of this already. I was like, "Oh, did you know about this?" He goes "Oh yeah, I have this," and so we started talking, and that's when I decided I wanted to run the game. But no, I really enjoyed doing this because I knew this was something I knew about. There are other things that I know a lot about too, they're in other tabletops. So if we ever got into the Marvel ones, I'd be ready. We got into there's a Ninja Turtles one that's supposed to be coming out. I'd be ready for that one. Star Wars, again, I wasn't as prepared for it, but again, I know enough about it that I could play it. So, but if you're looking to GM a game and you're into Fallout, this would be a good one to start off.
I would say if you be hesitant of this game, if you have players who are a little apprehensive to wanting to do some risky things, because like we said, right, with the pool system where you can add additional dice and stuff like that, some players might be like, "Oh, I don't want to do that," or "I don't want to give the GM additional dice to roll," because then it sucks. If they're thinking too much about that stuff, where it's I don't know if we should or shouldn't use this mechanic that's kind of important to the game. Just keep that in mind as you're playing, and as a GM, try to encourage them. I helped encourage our players
absolutely
by being a player who just used it and being like, "This is how you're supposed to use it. Let's use it this way." Yeah. So I think that could be the only stumbling block I could see is if people aren't used to a shared pool that all the players have, they might be a little hesitant to want to use that pool or to give things to the GM, because there's perks that are when you give a point to the GM, this happens or this and that. And so I would just say if you have players who are a little hesitant about that stuff, like, you know, let them dip their toes in and get used to it. Also, again, like we stated, your characters want to specialize. So if you are running this for the first time with brand new players, let them know that up front. You're going to want to specialize. You don't have to fully specialize in one thing. You could probably do 2, maybe 3 things, but definitely choose a specialization. I think my next build, I would want to do specializing in medicine and explosives. Yeah, and because I can already think of a really kooky character who's like, oh yeah, that arm needs to be amputated. Get the C4. You know,
a real Civil War doctor there.
Yeah, exactly. And then maybe put a little bit of stuff into luck as like a third choice, but like explosives and healing, I think would be and it makes sense too, right? He's the guy who explodes people and then patches them up. I think that could be a really fun character.
I feel like that character would have to be a ghoul too.
He can be. Oh man, we forgot to talk about that.
Oh yeah, we did.
Very quickly. You do not play as just humans.
No. The humans basically are the vault dwellers or the wastelanders, and that's pretty much it.
But you can play as a ghoul, a super mutant,
a robot.
Oh, just like a Mr. Handy robot, whatever kind of robot you want to play as. That's kind of the fun of this thing for sure. You don't just play like one generic human. No. Like you can be a ghoul, which is really. We had a friend who got to play a ghoul, and he was like, "It's rough on the voice, but it's really fun."
And you can always go the Walter Goggins route, and
where he doesn't have a gravelly voice.
So I don't have a gravelly voice. I just talk real southern like.
Yeah, even though I shouldn't, because you can see in the flashbacks that I didn't talk southern. I was just a cowboy. So I guess for whatever reason, I'm still a cowboy. Yeah. So if you want, you could also make those characters. And then one last thing, if you're like a person who likes minis, fret not, because Modiphius has a miniature system. Now it's more of a like war game, but you can use it for sure. And then like these minis I have right here, they're from the Fallout board game. And so they come with little tokens as well for like bloat flies and like other kind of enemies. You can use those tokens as well. So if you're the kind of person who really enjoys like having physical things, do not worry. You will be able to find plenty of Fallout stuff that you can then use. Again, I think though the Modiphius terrain game is unfortunately also in backstock right now because so many people bought it because of the game of the show.
That show, yeah. So hey, that's always a plus, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, you have a property, an IP that does so well that it has that roll down effect where it's like, oh, everything's coming up Fallout. So
yeah. Well, we hope you enjoyed, and we're going to sign off. Please make sure to subscribe, watch some of our other videos, all that fun things. Any last things, Charles?
Fallout tabletop role playing game. Again, if you like Fallout, get it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Last thing,
stay witty, even in the apocalypse.